Welcome to the CEO Hour with Dean Akers. The mission to help CEOs and startups succeed in today's marketplace. Entrepreneur or established CEO, is your business growing? Where's your business going? Let's talk about it with your host, Dean Akers.
Well, welcome to another chapter of the CEO Hour. I'm your host, Dean Akers, your adjunct CEO, bringing you CEOs or entrepreneurs each week that will share their journey of what they did and do and what they may not have wanted to do again over. Today we have Kevin Hourigan, the CEO of Bayshore Solutions. Welcome, Kevin.
Hey, good morning, Dean. How are you?
I'm doing great. Our listeners really love all the things that our CEOs have shared, and we've had all kinds of CEOs from every different type of business on, and today we're really looking forward to having you as a guest. So I always like to start it out it was 50-something years ago. What happened?
Well, it was just about 50 some odd years ago. It started in Buffalo, New York. I was born in Buffalo, New York, to two parents who were raised there both. And I lived in Buffalo, New York till I was about 8 years old. And then I moved to a community about 100 miles away called Erie, Pennsylvania. And then I made my journey to Florida the day after I graduated high school. My parents moved to Florida, and I started my Florida life here in the Tampa Bay market, and went in as a freshman to University of South Florida.
So you were up in the Buffalo and then the Erie area. So you've had those both are known for the bitterest winters on the planet.
There was a lot of snow involved, but as a child, that's nothing more fun than when there's a lot of snow. A snow day from school was, just epic when you're a kid growing up there.
So you come down and you're with your parents and you start University of South Florida.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So my parents, I originally chosen to go to school to be a dentist, and about a year into my journey, a little over a year into my journey, the guidance counselors were talking about how modern medicine was advancing so quickly that there probably wouldn't be as much of demand for a dentist as I got later in life. And they also were talking about the oversaturation of dentists in the marketplace, and therefore dentistry wasn't a good idea. And so quickly I had to determine what else to go do. And I was a little lost for a while because I really, as a child, thought I'd be a dentist. But that chapter didn't work out so well. I don't think they were correct. I have a lot of friends who are dentists. They seem to do quite well. They don't have any challenge for finding new patients or anything of that nature. I'm still going to the dentist twice a year, so modern medicine hasn't advanced so quickly. But that was the feedback at the time.
So were your parents in the medical field?
Neither one was, but I think growing up, we're all a victim of how we were raised. I shouldn't say victim. We all who we are because of how we were raised. And neither one of my parents were in the medical field, but my best friend's father was a dentist, and our family's closest friend was an orthodontist. And I think the influence of those helped me understand that was something that was appealing to me. Also, as a kid, for whatever reason, I had 12 teeth pulled before I was 12 years old. And as dramatic and tragic as that could be, I really respected, as a young age, I really respected the approach of the dentist that did all of this. And, for those reasons, dentistry seemed to be an appealing career to me.
Well, it's still a big business, and I've had some dental practice groups as clients. It's a different business today.
Yes, it is.
And I think knowing your journey, honestly, I think you still chose the right direction.
Thank you.
So you're in college at USF, and so now you're kind of bobbling around.
Yes.
Dental's not where you're headed.
No.
So now what happens?
So, I ended up, my parents were always education was very important to my parents, and in work and all of that stuff. So I grew up under a pretty strict regime with my parents. So after getting out of college, I ended up in the Ritz-Carlton companies in a management trainee program. And that taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about customer service. It taught me something, Dean, that you have a great skill of. It's remembering people's names, looking people in the eye. I think Dale Carnegie said that the number one golden word in the English vocabulary is somebody's name. Well, Ritz-Carlton really beat that into you really, really well. And so I had no desire to be in the hospitality space, but I had the desire to get my parents off my back, and I needed a job to be able to do that. And what I ended up learning through the Ritz-Carlton experience I have. Again, customer service is one, the importance of policies and procedures, and the opportunity to retrain and revisit those and celebrate what works well and then discipline what doesn't or correct what doesn't. But I learned the importance of having a foundation of best practices and reinforcement of those best practices, all with pleasing the customer. And that was a great foundation for me to take into an entrepreneurial world shortly thereafter.
Well, I didn't know. So the Ritz-Carlton, did you actually work for them or just go through their training?
No, I worked for a hotel. I worked for a couple of hotels. And in that journey, Dean, I started as a front desk clerk, right? Yeah. And I didn't know what a front desk clerk is. I just knew I needed to get my parents off my back. But I started there, and they had a management training program. And quickly I started, they started telling me if I would do this and I would do that, I would have an opportunity to get promoted. And as much as I didn't care about working in the hospitality space, I still had pride. And I had a desire to make more money, and I had a desire to be recognized. And if I knew I did these things that they were sharing, I'd have the opportunity to do some things that were important to me, which was to be able to earn more money, to be able to be recognized for accomplishing something, and to be able to grow. And while I didn't necessarily want to keep doing it in the hospitality space, I was having fun being recognized, making more money. And at that point, they saw me as kind of the young guy who had some tenacity and some passion, and started to give me an opportunity to help some hotels go from a paper system of checking people into an electronic version. And so I quickly started to learn what I could do and got promoted a few times. And at one point realized I didn't want to continue to do this, and computers were the wave of the future, and chose to branch out. But it was a great foundation to get started with.
You know, I think there's so much wisdom in what you just shared. For the ones that are listening out there, they're in leadership positions, I think you should reinforce the importance of recognition, the importance of creating vision and opportunity. And clearly, the Ritz-Carlton Corporation would have to be, that's like starting at Harvard.
Sure.
For that kind of experience. How blessed were you? Even if it wasn't for the right reasons.
Right.
I mean, to have that unbelievable start out. And so now you're getting all those feelings that are helping you develop who you're going to be. So you started in the IT side with Ritz-Carlton?
So what happened was in the hotel industry, hotels are open 24/7, 365. The average wage earner there is a minimum wage or slightly better than minimum wage. The turnover rate in a hotel is humongous. And so when you become a leader within a hotel, in my experience, you have a lot of people call in sick at the last minute or just no show. And as a manager, that meant you were taking over that shift. You were doing that work if you couldn't get anybody to come in. And so you're on call 24/7, 365 all the time. And you work a lot of hours in the hospitality space. And I knew I didn't want to do that going forward. And as I continued to climb the career path, I'd gotten pretty far, and I only saw 1 or 2 or 3 more people ahead of me in the career path. And I liked all of those people, but they were miserable. Not miserable people. They were miserable in their own journey. They hated where they were at. And I knew as much as I was in line to go take the next spot and the next spot and the next spot, they were miserable. And I remember one day one of them came to me and he closed my door and he said, hey, listen, man, I just want to let you know I'm out of here. Next Friday's my last day. And I stood up and I shook his hand and I said, congratulations, man. I'm so excited for you. And he kind of gave me this puzzled look. And he's like, well, I don't understand. I'm like, you got out of here, man. Congratulations. Like, well, actually, they're letting me go. And I thought he had resigned on his own. But budget cuts meant that he was just his job was being eliminated, and they were giving a few more days to work some things out. I still think it was a congratulations because he got out, but I thought it was by his own intention and not the react of a layoff. But I knew I wanted to get out. And so my next role, I knew I wanted to be computer-based, and I didn't want to be in a retail operation that was open nights and weekends. And so I had an opportunity to go work in the computer industry for the same salary I was making. There was variable compensation pay on top of it, and I was promised no nights or weekends. And I took that opportunity.
Wow. Do you ever, or have you ever talked to that guy again?
No, I have not.
That would be an interesting guy to try to Google up and find out where his journey took him.
I absolutely would love to, yes.
I bet his journey would be a gotcha moment, that it wasn't bad.
I'm sure it was better, yes.
Yeah, he got kicked out of the craziness and probably found his way.
Absolutely.
So now, so we're gonna be meeting or coming back after the break, and I want to learn more about this computer base. But I'm really interested. There was a lot of things going on in your head at that moment. You were still single at that point.
Correct. Yes.
And where were you working with Ritz-Carlton?
Right here in Clearwater Beach.
Oh, okay.
Yep. It's called the Holiday Inn Surfside back then. It was owned by the Ritz-Carlton Company.
It was a Ritz-Carlton hotel, but not a Ritz-Carlton signature.
Correct.
Oh, I was trying to put you where you would have been and how you would have gotten there.
Yep.
So the hotel business was not going to be your long-term strategy.
I knew I didn't want to be in it any longer.
But it was a great platform to learn from.
I had some of the strongest friendships ever. I love the people. I didn't love the job.
Well, when we come back to segment 2, we're gonna learn a little bit more about how Kevin transitioned out of a place where he loved the people, a job that obviously gave him a great platform for initiatives to do other things with a hallmark organization. And I just want to remind the listeners that we have that $10,000 CEO physical that's available, where our CEOs will come out and help you, or do it online or over the phone. And it's free if you just reach out at help@adjunctceo.com. That's help@adjunctceo.com. So we'll see you back for segment 2.
The CEO Hour with your host, Dean Akers, will be right back. Connect at deanakers.com. So, you're a tech startup. You're working hard, trying to make it happen with big ideas, big dreams, and a small budget. You need to connect with people in the same boat. Now is the time to join the early stage startup group, the Innovation Center, an incubator for early stage tech firms. You can find them at tbinnovates.com. Now operating for over 14 years, the Innovation Center is a regional, national, and internationally known success story, continuing to generate momentum in Pinellas County. Twice, the Innovation Center has won the Tampa Bay Technology Forum's Excellence in Service Award and has been recognized by Entrepreneur.com as a top 10 international business incubator. And now, Tech Garage, a technology and entrepreneurship center, has joined forces with the Innovation Center to provide a co-working program in downtown St. Petersburg. Connect with the startup community. Connect with the Innovation Center. Go to tbinnovates.com. That's tbinnovates.com. And tell them the Adjunct CEO sent you.
If you're a CEO or organizational leader looking to expand your business, join the CEO Council, where you'll meet and exchange ideas with fellow CEOs without the pressures of a sales network environment. You can join today by sending an email to application@adjunctceo.com. The CEO Council is comprised of over 220 fantastic local business leaders you'll be able to learn from because they walk in your shoes every day. When you become a member of the CEO Council, you'll have an opportunity to build trusted relationships during the roundtable meetings, share your triumphs, vet ideas, and work through business challenges with peers who can provide real-world business solutions. The CEO Council offers opportunities to hear from world-renowned speakers that inspire ideas to help members grow as both leaders and individuals. Join the CEO Council. Request your CEO Council membership application today at adjunctceo.com or by sending email to application@adjunctceo.com. That's application@adjunctceo.com.
Welcome back to the CEO Hour, helping your business succeed in today's marketplace. Connect at deanakers.com. And now your host, Dean Akers.
Well, welcome back to the CEO Hour. Again, I'm Dean Akers, your adjunct CEO that hosts the CEO Hour each week, bringing you top entrepreneurs or CEOs that share their journey, both the goods and the bads. First segment, our guest today, Kevin Hourigan, shared his journey with the Ritz-Carlton Corporation, which, quite frankly, I think had to be an epic foundation in 2020 hindsight.
I agree.
So now you've decided this is not going to be your career, and you decide to go into the computer business?
Sure. So I knew it wasn't going to be my career, and I really didn't know what in the computer business I wanted to do. I just knew computers were the wave of the future, and I had some exposure in the hotel system, helping them convert from registering people online on a paper versus going into using a computer. And so
what year was this?
We're talking 1994, 1995.
So this is really on the front side of the IT revolution.
Absolutely. I think it was really where the world in the United States, it's where people who worked for a company were getting the computer put on their desk instead of paper that they used to use before. But everybody was just starting to get computers on the desk. Having a computer at your desk was an expectation for a lot of jobs. And so I had an opportunity to go work for a company that was based here in Tampa Bay. Friends of mine, they had a small company. It was about $300,000 in revenue when they made me a job offer to come work there. They promised me it was, weekdays only and same salary I was making, an opportunity to make some variable pay based on some business growth. And I thought I had nothing to lose. And so I started with that opportunity.
Great. So was that opportunity in fixing computers or in sales?
It was going to be in sales. Office management, again, it was a small company. There was probably 5 employees. And for sure, sales was a component. Office management was a component of it. I think they're just creating a new role for somebody that thought might be able to help. And it wasn't, there was no job description. But the variable comp side of it would be on the sales side.
So what you learned early on in your first kind of dive into businesses, nothing happens without a sale.
Correct. Yep.
And so part of the success of that company wasn't that you brought in the policies and procedures of the Ritz-Carlton. It was more that you had the acumen to drive top-line revenue.
I think that was it. I think it came with policies and procedures, too. And just a story from the hotel. Part of what I ended up having to manage was the reservation center at the hotel. And it was amazing when people actually followed the script, how many more room nights they could book on the telephone. And one of the first things that they taught people is they could quote what the rates were, what the availability was. But immediately after you quote that, may I book that room for you, was a question. And when you didn't ask that question, your closing rate was a fraction of it was if you did ask that question. And so I think it was taking some of the learning lessons about not just going through the motions, but how to go through the motions correctly to end up with a better output by following some proven practices that worked over and over again. And this entrepreneur company didn't have any of those. And so what were those things that we could do, whether it be a sales perspective, a customer service perspective, but how do we just not go through the motions, but how do you go through the motions with more intent to end up with a better output and bring some of that into that organization and taking some of the lessons from the hotel and bringing it into this business?
That's a big takeaway for our listeners today. And I can tell you one of the techniques I've deployed over the years and have done it a lot recently, and it's comical, is we actually have our call center people and or our sales people and or our managers and or just pocket record the dialogues, and then they listen back to it. I don't critique it. And 100% of the time, you can see the train wreck before the crash site.
Absolutely.
And to your point, it's those subtle things. Asking, can I book that for you, will change the closing rate. As subtle as that. And wow, what an experience.
Well, and it was, and I watched it, when I was being trained the script, when I sat behind that reservation counter and I was the one being forced to repeat that script, I didn't believe it, I didn't understand it, I thought it was being micromanaged. When I managed people to do that, then I really saw the results of what the difference was. And if they said yes, congratulations, we got a booking. If they said no, now the script has, why is it? Are these the wrong dates?
Right.
It really probably wasn't the answer. The wrong answer probably was it was the wrong rate. We start, were these not the dates you were looking for? Did you want a room with a different view or a different bedding account? But you would get that person to talk and learn to figure out what it was that was preventing them from booking. Money typically was the number one reason why they weren't booking. We would get to that too. But again, if you didn't get it on the first time, how do you continue to ask questions to get it the second or the third time? And just bringing that into everything I've done in business ever since is not just going through the motions, but intentionally going through the motions to end up with the output that you want at the highest yield you can get.
Well, you hit up something, as you know me for a long time. One of my, call it, sticks or things that bugs me is people that don't ask enough questions, right, and ask open-ended. So what you're telling the listeners is mastering the art of the question. Then once you master the art of the question, teaching your people to fluently, call it scripted, but fluently run the play.
Correct.
So it looks like a fluid play, not a name, rank, serial number.
Absolutely. If it comes across as a script, the data you're going to get back is going to be script related. But if you understand why you're asking the question, how to use that information to intelligently drive the rest of the conversation, you'll end up with more reward.
So you just brought up an interesting word that our guest last week, John Jay, brought up. And he brought it up as he grew his chain of convenience stores across Florida. And the big thing that he found, which you just shared, which I'd love for you to share some more thoughts on, was he said, Dean, it's about the why. Once you get your teams to understand the why we do it, the why we ask them that and stuff, you don't have to micromanage them because they get it. Tell me.
I think it's incredibly important, the why. And I think in my experience, while you're trying to convince the why, I was faced with another hurdle. My average reservation employee maybe worked for the hotel 7 months. And so it takes a little while for them to understand the why. And so one is just getting the script down. The second one is more importantly the why. But I think you can actually reduce the turnover in those type of situations if they understand what the why is. And so it was always important to know the script, but more importantly, why you're asking the questions and feel proud of what you did. Part of my promotions, I worked in that reservation department just like the people I led. My promotion was the result of my performance. And my why was learning what was important to the hotel. And when I started to be able to do really well for the hotel came back to me and offered me an opportunity to manage that department and continue part of my career growth. I understand why it was important. That's how the hotel made money. And without those room nights, there was no hotel revenue. And without those rooms being booked, there was no dinners, people in the bar, all of that type of stuff. It all started with that reservation phone call. And if I didn't get that closed or our team didn't get it closed, the likelihood that person was going to call back was small. They would tell you on the phone, let me think about it. Let me talk to my wife, all these different types of things. And you would hang up thinking, okay, well, they're going to talk to their spouse. But that really was, they're just going to call the next place. And the next place would have a better process. And that's who would get that room night booked.
Kind of reiterate that in more generic terms, because you're sharing a really valuable point. You're sharing a point of understanding the why, but how the interaction at every touch point in your company impacts your revenue, your customer satisfaction, the whole shooting match, right?
Absolutely. Well, there's an old saying, you're no stronger than your weakest link, right? So every touch point in your organization is an opportunity to strengthen what that's going to be. And so that training had to exist across the board. And I think why Ritz-Carlton does such a great job, it isn't just the people at the front desk or anything that recognize people, intentionally try to make eye contact, intentionally try to remember guests' names. And that may be while you're walking by the bell stand. It could be walking into the restaurant. They're creating a great guest experience. And because of that, the guests spend more time on the property and spend more money because they're appreciating the way they're being served. And they're not seeking to go outside of that because they're no longer enjoying that experience. They are enjoying it, therefore they spend more. And so you have to train it. Everybody in your organization has to understand the why, because those who don't are still going to have an opportunity to interact with your coworkers or your customers. And if they're poorly serving your coworkers, your coworkers are going to poorly serve your customers. So it's not even just a great experience externally to your customers, but your internal stakeholders are just as important. If you've got friction within your process, it's going to wear down on the employees, and the employees are going to wear down on putting their game face on. I forget exactly what Disney calls it, but when you're on stage, you're always smiling, something along those lines. It's easier to do if every day at work you're able to do that versus having to put a face on, because internally it's a struggle because your company doesn't understand the why, and you may play a smile face on the outside, but on the inside, if you're struggling, then it's going to wear down on the employees, and that's going to create a weak link.
So internal customer service is huge.
It is because it makes people feel good about what they're doing and want to serve. If they're beaten down day in and day out, they may be able to play smile face for a while, but they don't mean it inside.
I've seen that in companies that I've gone into where the internal frictions of this department versus that department, or those guys are idiots and these guys are idiots, everybody tries to fake a smile, but it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. You can see through it, and you see it in many different businesses, but you fly in the airlines, and you have the Southwest, which flies out of here to Tampa a lot. I spend a lot of time. They genuinely seem happy. You ride another airline and they generally seem unhappy. And you can just tell the way they treat each other and the way that they treat the passengers. And it's a different flying experience for those who are genuinely happy versus those who are trying to fake the smile.
Wow. When we come back to segment 3, Kevin, we're going to talk more about this, how you've translated this into your Bayshore solution and grown your company. And again, we have Kevin Hourigan today, CEO of Bayshore Solutions, on sharing his journey. And I'm Dean Akers, your host of the CEO Hour. And remember that $10,000 offer, it's just help@adjunctceo.com, or just reach out to us and just say hello at help@adjunctceo.com. We love hearing from our listeners. So we'll see you in segment 3.
Helping established CEOs and entrepreneurs. The CEO Hour continues in a moment. Connect with Dean Akers at deanakers.com. Welcome back to the CEO Hour with Dean Akers. Connect at deanakers.com. And now your host, Dean Akers.
Well, welcome back to the third segment of the CEO Hour. Again, this is Dean Akers, your host for the CEO Hour, bringing you top CEOs and entrepreneurs each week that share their journey of what they've done successfully and a lot of the things that they learned along the way to provide tips for you. Again, our goal with this show, and I've had a lot of listeners reach out to me and thank me for the tips that our CEOs share. Our goal with this show is for our CEOs to share their journey and provide some tip that you take away that helps you in your journey. So we've got Kevin Hourigan today. Again, he's just finished in the last segment telling us about how he's come to a kind of a sort of a startup company and deployed his strategies he's learned from the Ritz-Carlton Group. So now we're at a small software company.
Yep.
What happens?
Yeah, so it was really a computer business. So it sold computers. At the time, it only sold computers to individuals. And they had one advertising channel, Dean. They had, this is gonna blow your audience away. I'm dating myself here. They had one advertising channel. It was a classified ad in the Tampa Bay Times. It used to be the St. Pete Times. And it was that back then there was a section for computers, and you could buy a computer for $29 a month.
Really?
And so this is before there was not a Best Buy in town yet. There was not a place where you could buy a computer, except for Tandy Radio Shack was the only place that you could buy one. Everything else was mail order back then. And so we had a local store that you could walk into and you could finance it for $29 a month. And so quickly into the business, I'm helping people who are coming in to either pay cash, but a lot of them wanted to finance this computer for $29 a month. And in serving those people, I learned that while this was going to be their home computer, they all worked at offices. And those offices were in the process of putting a computer on everyone's desktop at that time, too. And quickly, I was able to get an opportunity to go into some of those businesses and not only help them supply with a computer for their home, but an opportunity to meet with the IT departments of these companies who are going to be buying 30 computers, 60 computers, 200 computers. And so at my 1-year anniversary with the company, it did a little over $300,000 in revenue the year before I got there. We did $1.3 million.
Wow.
1 year later, and I had done $997,000 of that $1.3 million. So my 7 inches between my 2 ears became bigger than what it should have. I had an ego, and so that 7 inches became about 70 inches in my own mind. And so I decided I could do this for myself because, one, I thought I could help myself make more money, but two, the people who brought me there cheated on me right out of the gate. About a month into it, they said, you'd learn a lot more if you'd start to come in on Saturdays. And so it was such a cool, important thing to me to not work weekends after spending 4 years working every week in the hotel space. But they were right. I went in every Saturday morning from 9 to 1, and I learned a lot more, which became very valuable for me to be able to help solve people's problems in the commercial side of things. And so I decided to resign, and they quickly talked me out of it and offered me 1/3 of the business to be their partner. And so that was satisfactory to me, and we continued to build that business. But really, that's where the opportunity to start what's now Bayshore Solutions today. We had built a pretty big commercial business, putting computers into those companies, and had the idea, what about helping them build their first website ever? And back in late 1995, early 1996, we started knocking on these doors of these companies we put computers into and asked them if they wanted their first website ever. And we offered them a 3-page website for $500. And quickly we learned there were 2 responses we generally got. The first one is, what is a website?
Oh, yeah.
And the second one is, we'll never need one of those. But shortly after some period of time, education took place, and people needed those. And that started with a $500 website, then became a $5,000 website, then became a $30,000 website. And it wasn't much long into the journey that we knew this is where our future was, and not into the highly competitive marketplace of computers, which now, by the way, there was a Best Buy and an Office Depot and a Circuit City and a CompUSA on every street corner who could sell that same computer for about 40 points less than we could. So we no longer had the best solution. And I've always said it's no fun to ever be working for an organization who doesn't have the best solution. And at one point we did, but we had lost that competitive advantage. And so we now had the best solution, not in providing computers, but helping these companies grow their businesses through a web presence. And we closed down our computer business and went solely into the web design, web development business. And that origin then is who's made Bayshore Solutions what it is today.
Yeah, I'm going to say back in that era, when you, like you said, you had 2 answers. We don't need a website, or what are you talking about?
Right.
Who could have thought back then, although we had a speaker at the CEO Council this past week that said all the signs are always there years in advance. So now you've embarked on providing this kind of platform for people called web pages.
Yes.
How did that work?
Yeah, so I think back then, I think there's someone once said people make decisions based on 4 emotions. They're glad, they're mad, they're sad, or they're scared. And I think when our early opportunities into the web design, web development business, people were buying websites because they were scared. They were afraid if they didn't get one, their competition would have a better one. It might put them out of business. It's no fun to be able to offer solutions when people are buying when they're scared. You want people to logically know what they're going into it. So they first said, we don't know what one is, or we won't need one. Then the immediate reaction is, oh, we've got to get one. We have to get one overnight because our competition just launched one. We're afraid we're going to go out of business. So, Dean, it probably took 5 years of being in this space before companies really know intentionally why they're going in to design and develop their website. And that's where the business really became fun, because you're able to work together with a company on a shared vision of what you're going to be doing for them and what the expected outcome is expected to be, not based on fear or the unknown. And so, for the first 5 years, we were helping companies get their first web page ever. I think there's been a belief for many years that if you don't have you're not a real company till you have a website.
Right.
We help companies cross that off the list, but more importantly, as we progressed, we help companies not only cross that off the list, but know how to intentionally use their website as a vehicle to help them grow their business. And it became a whole lot more fun when it wasn't just an opportunity to cross off the list, we have a website, but how to intentionally use that website for business growth.
Well, that was a big shift, too, because originally the website I had a business way back when, and in all our conversations of our CEO groups and stuff, the website was your electronic brochure.
Right.
And the reason you had it was now you could give them this web address and they could look at you. They could look at you without you having to print something.
Correct. Yep.
There was no conversation about e-commerce or and there was no analytics to say there were 50 people came on or 100 people. It was just like, to your point, we had www.whatever.com.
Absolutely. So, yeah, and I'll just tell you, that was one of the value proposition components that we would market to people. Is we would ask them, back then this is in the Tampa Bay market, and it had just gone from having one shared area code of 813 to the Pinellas side of Tampa Bay now getting 727 as its area code. I remember asking people, do you have a brochure for your business? And they'd bring it to me, and it might be on the Pinellas side, and it had 813 listed on the brochure. And I'd say, what are you going to do going forward with these brochures? How many do you have? Oh, we have got 10,000. Well, what are you going to do with these 10,000 brochures with the wrong area code? And they had this puzzled look on their face. I said, if that was a website, that'd be a $50 fix. Now you've got about 10,000 pieces of starter wood in your closet right now. And, we just said this is your electronic brochure, and it's easy to update, and you don't have to make a huge print commitment because things change. And online, that's easy, and in print, it's permanent.
You know what's crazy? I remember when I was a kid, my grandparents were telling me about listening to radio and everything. You and I both have sons.
Yes.
if they were listening to you and I talk right now, they would think we were talking about dinosaurs.
No doubt.
They don't even have a clue, and that's what the technology industry's done. It's just been like at warp speed, hasn't it?
Well, I think it always has been. I just think we've recognized in our generation just different areas of the warp speed of it. But you look at the adoption of what has happened because of the internet over other adoptions of whether it be bringing radio or television to the marketplaces. The digital transformation happened way faster than any of these transformations of generations in the past. And I think we're going to continue to see the speed of technology is just something that continues to just get faster and faster and faster as each generation comes into the world. They'll look back and see what we did is not revolutionary, because what's going to take place in their generation is going to be truly, truly remarkable.
Yeah, I'm just amazed. I mean, I love technology. I mess with it all the time, and I just recently cut the cord. The cable cord,
yes.
And I've got YouTube TV now.
Right.
And the worst thing about it is I don't even watch TV on my TV anymore. I lay in bed with my laptop now.
And I know, but there's so much more content available at will. And, if you were coming into the world and having an opportunity how to get entertained, you would never understand why to go back to terrestrial TV.
So another thing before we go into the break here in a minute, people need to keep their eye on the ball of the vision as CEOs, because the blockbuster guys threw the Netflix guys out.
Right.
And do we find sometimes as CEOs, or if you're advising CEOs, you need to stay sharp, in touch, and on top of things, don't you?
Well, absolutely. And you talk about, the blockbuster thing, and who would ever imagine the world without blockbusters on lots of corners, right? But, I mentioned earlier, CompUSA, Best Buy. I mean, these were brands that sold all of us a computer at one time, a television at one time, that don't exist today.
Right.
And, to think that these places that we used to use every single time we need an electronic to go to don't exist. That's how you really need to be someone needs to be focused on where is this going, and is it going to an attractive destination? Because there's a lot of really, really smart people out there who thought they had all of that figured out, and they're no longer in business today.
So as we go into segment 4 with Kevin Hourigan, we're going to really talk about the disruption, and he's a disruptor with his whole technology and the things he's doing with Bayshore Solutions. Again, if you have any questions or want some help, just reach out to help@adjunctceo.com, and we're always here for you, and we look forward to seeing you in segment 4.
Success never takes the weekend off. The CEO Hour continues in a moment. Growth begins by understanding where you are now. For a limited time, business growth experts at Adjunct CEO will provide a full CEO physical of your business valued at $10,000 for free. Email ceophysical@adjunctceo.com. This offer includes financial, marketing, and sales analysis and an outline to help you strategize future success. For your free CEO physical, email ceophysical@adjunctceo.com. ceophysical@adjunctceo.com. Florida ranks high as a new hub for business growth and innovation. Startups, restarts, and starting over are all part of the new vitality generated as geography and economic opportunity collide. As Florida's entrepreneurial ecosystem grows, many are using Synapse to grow their business. Synapse is a groundbreaking methodology that connects all personas within the innovation economy, utilizing a method that enables all users to progress in meeting their given needs while promoting much-needed community engagement. Never more than now has Florida presented opportunity to be better aligned in business, providing huge potential for greater overall results with strong collaboration and holistic leadership. Synapse is a growth synthesis platform that will allow you to take advantage and flourish in ways you never thought possible as an entrepreneur, as a business, and within the context of community, events, connections, publishing, all with Synapse. See for yourself at synapsefl.com. That's synapsefl.com. Welcome back to the CEO Hour, helping your business succeed in today's marketplace. Connect at deanakers.com. And now your host, Dean Akers.
Well, welcome back to the 4th segment of the CEO Hour. Again, this is Dean Akers, your CEO host, bringing you top CEOs and entrepreneurs in the Tampa Bay area each week that share their journey of both the things they've done successful and the things they maybe wish to do again. Again, our objective of the show is for when the show's over, for you to have left with at least one idea or thought that will help you in your career, whether you're a CEO, a salesperson, or an entrepreneur starting up. Our guest today, Kevin Hourigan, is a true entrepreneur. He got kind of booted out by his own direction from a big corporate nest with the Ritz-Carlton Group, but it allowed him to start his journey of entrepreneurship that has led him to be on our show today as a successful entrepreneur in the Tampa Bay area with a very, very successful digital business, I would say.
Yeah, Bayshore Solutions, to celebrate 24 years in business as a digital agency.
Gosh,
yeah,
I love you color your hair. People can't see us on the radio.
No dye yet, Dean, but one day that'll change. But yeah, 24 years in the digital space. Dean, I always say that doing what I've done for the last 24 years as owning a digital advertising agency, in this space, a year in my industry could be the equivalent of a decade in many others. And so, I've had to spend a significant amount of time, trying to figure out where an agency like mine is going. And, it's incredibly important for me to be able to have a peer group. One of my board members and one of my mentors, a guy named Lee Arnold, who's a commercial real estate icon here in this marketplace, he used to always have this phrase, be careful because you can breathe your own exhaust but not suffer from it. And really what he was talking about is make sure you vet your ideas with others because you may be the only one who believes in your own idea. And so through my career, I've continued to want to get influenced on my ideas and be influenced by others. And whether it be where, Dean, you and I met, the CEO Council of Tampa Bay, I've been in YPO, Young Presidents Organization, for 10 years. But YPO is a great tagline. It's something along the lines of learning through the experiences of others. And that's what I've had a great opportunity to do is to vet my ideas through a peer group, but also be influenced by that peer group of ideas. I didn't come to myself naturally. And the combination of learning through others' experiences and running my own ideas and experiences through them has continued to help me be able to create a company that's still growing and having a great run. Where companies had a lot of adversity, we're what we call it, I call it we're .com survivor. We went from 3 employees to 30 employees to 225 employees, back to about 20 employees, all in about a 2-year run. And that was when the .com bubble was really, really growing, and then it exploded. There's a statistic in our space that only 2% of the companies that were in that space survived the .com bubble burst, and we're one of those 2%.
Wow, congratulations.
And how did we get there? I think we learned from others' experiences. We learned from our own. I didn't breathe my own exhaust. I talked to my customers. I talked to my coworkers. I talked to my peer group. And I learned where we could best position ourselves to help them. And we were able to come out on the right side of what is probably one of the biggest business swells and collapses that may ever take place in my career. I think the real estate of the mid 2000s would be another one, but certainly the .com bubble burst in around 2000. Maybe in my career and yours, one of the biggest bubbles and bursts that we experience in our career.
Oh, I think no question. So if there's a listener out there, and I run into this, and I want you to, you don't have to, but there's listeners out there and people I run into every day that go, Dean, I hear you, but you don't understand, I don't have enough time to go to the CEO Council. I don't have enough time to go to the YPO.
Yes.
Or I don't have enough time to be in a peer group. I'm too busy running my business. So what's going to happen to those people?
Well, that was my old line, Dean. And then I one day made a change and decided to go and invest my time there. It's amazing how I learned in that peer group how less problems I had than by trying to fix them on my own and spending the time where I was spending my time. And so investing my time with others and learning from their experiences and sharing my own experience, my own problem, these people have already been through that. I think in YPO, they say that the typical number of problems, there's like 10 real problems. You're having cash flow problems. You have an issue with your partner. You're having employee problems. You're having supplier problems. But there's really only a collection of about 10 problems. When you're in the midst of that battle, you think you're the only one who's ever experienced it. But the reality is in these peer groups, everyone has had experience in these different areas. and their experience shared with you solves your problem way faster than trying to solve it on your own. Spending all this time trying to solve it on your own, learning from others' experiences will bring you ideas you didn't have and bring you confidence you won't have trying to do it by yourself.
So the real point is make sure that you're reaching out and getting involved in these organizations, because it's actually going to gain time for you and accelerate your opportunities, or certainly circumvent some of the challenges you're going to have.
Absolutely. I think the number one warning sign of anybody who is in an issue says, I don't have time for one of these, that's the number one sign they need to get involved, because the time they invest is going to save them time going forward.
So now you've made the transition through the dot-com bubble, which, by the way, I think you're correct. It's probably one of the biggest bursts in modern-day industries, probably since the recession, the Depression.
Probably.
And impacted lots of people's net worth and everything. You made it through that. You're growing your company. Where's Kevin Hourigan's journey going now?
Well, it was a tough journey back then, but today I'm excited. Today we're a company about to celebrate our 24th anniversary, and through my peer group, we're doing something that is really cool. We are practicing the entrepreneur operating system created by Gino Wickman in a book called Traction. And I'm doing that because I have a CEO peer group with YPO. It's 8 digital agency owners. And in that group, 6 of the 8 of us decided to go down this Traction experience. We all made this decision in the fourth quarter of last year. And then secondly, I belong to another CEO peer group called Digital Masterminds, and 31 of the 41 companies made this decision. And so, if I wasn't in these peer groups, I might not consider how to continue to take my company to the next level. But, following this entrepreneur operating system, myself and our leadership team and our entire company now have a much better understanding of how we're going to run our business and why we're going to do it, because tens of thousands of companies have followed this system, and there's books and manuals on how to do it. And I often joke, before we were practicing the entrepreneurial operating system, it goes by the acronym EOS. I said we were following a business system called the KOS, and that stands for the Kevin operating system. There haven't been any books written about it, and there certainly isn't a big roadmap for all of my employees and coworkers to be able to read to understand where we're going. In following this, we've been able to really identify what our vision is, what our values are, what's most important to us, and align our time and energy toward those things than prior maybe reacting to opportunistic things or problematic things and swinging too hard to opportunities and issues as a reactionary approach. Instead of today, we're 10 months into this journey. It's a much more proactive journey. The opportunistic things and the problem things, they don't seem as important. We want to stay the course of what we're doing and continue to find an opportunity to provide better results for our customers and a better place to work for our coworkers. And at the same point, just building a better organization altogether.
Well, that's a big tip. The EOS program, or Traction, that, I've read the book, looked at the processes. It's excellent. I think the key to the EOS or Traction is it gives you an outline for it.
Absolutely, a roadmap of what to do. Everybody in the company has a role, and there's much more clarity to that role, so they know why they're there and what their role is and how they could contribute. And prior to that, while we had the intentions of providing all that, I don't think our intentions provided the same clarity that they now have with the EOS system.
Wow! And do you have a facilitator?
We do. We opted to choose to have a facilitator. Absolutely. Our leadership team and I were very passionate about wanting to do this correctly, wanted to do it exactly as the book said, and felt the value of facilitator shepherding us through the areas where we had questions or lack of confidence would help us get there with more confidence amongst ourselves and less stubbing our toes, so to speak.
So your big message for our entrepreneurs and CEOs out there as we wrap up today's show is, if I'm hearing right, is find yourself peer groups.
Yes.
Get involved in a process. If it's EOS, there's probably some other ones out there.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, get some roadmaps of proven success. Is there anything else you'd like to share in just the closing minute we have with our listeners today?
Yeah, I just say, you summarized it well. Get in peer groups, absolutely. I think having you and your leadership team and your company follow some proven systems instead of the entrepreneurial ones that we tend to lead ourselves. But I think lastly is continue to talk to your customers and your coworkers. It's amazing what you'll learn And a lot of problems are solved in those conversations. And rather than trying to fix them yourselves, the answers exist. You just have to talk to those people.
Well, Kevin, I just really appreciate you joining us today. I mean, it's always a pleasure to have somebody of your caliber on the show, and I know our listeners out there are going to get great takeaway. And we put this up as a podcast too, so it's a CEO Hour podcast on all the major networks too. It's after the radio show airs. But again, thank you for coming on the show. And this is Dean Akers again, your adjunct CEO and host of the CEO Hour. Each week, again, bringing you top entrepreneurs and success story CEOs in the Tampa Bay area specifically that bring their tips and ideas to help you grow and make your companies more successful. Again, you can reach out at help@adjunctceo.com and just ask any question you have. And if you have a question for Kevin, reach out there. I'll pass it on and he'll be happy to respond back. And again, we have the $10,000 program. So we look forward to seeing you next week at the CEO Hour, and have a great week. This is Dean Akers, your CEO, signing off.
You've been listening to the CEO Hour with Dean Akers, helping businesses and CEOs succeed in today's marketplace. Receive a free CEO physical when you connect with Dean at deanakers.com. That's deanakers.com. Join us again next week for the CEO Hour with Dean Akers.